You can support me by turning on notifications, subscribing to my channel, and liking the video. Waiting for your comments. Silent witnesses of the Dark Fireplace. The ominous tune of crackling wood in the dead of night. I remember the first time I ever heard that uncanny crackling in the dead of night. It was a winter evening so quiet that the hush blanketed every corner of the world. I could hear my own breathing in the stillness. I'd recently inherited my great-uncle's remote country house, an inheritance both unexpected and, in a way, unwelcome. He died mysteriously, leaving behind no children, and I, barely acquainted with him, found myself the caretaker of a sprawling old residence miles from the nearest village. Though curiosity might have compelled me to see it, a sense of foreboding took hold the moment I stepped across the threshold. I could not have guessed that the house itself held secrets, lurking especially within its ancient fireplace, whose walls had absorbed decades, if not centuries, of silent witness. When I arrived that day, dusk was already falling. The taxi driver, apparently knowing local legends, wasted no time in dropping me off and turning back onto the gravel road with a nervous wave. Left alone, I walked up the worn stone steps. The outside of the house was a formidable sight. Tall windows that looked like sorrowful eyes, shutters hanging crooked, and ivy strangling much of the brickwork. A chill wind whipped through the pines, making the overgrowth rustle with an unnerving hush. Pushing open the front door, I let out a breath of relief to find that, at least inside, the living areas were still partially furnished. A thick layer of dust covered the antique furniture, and the corridors smelled of must and stale air. My footsteps echoed on the parquet floors, stirring motes of dust and amber slivers of light from the windows. A grand foyer opened to a wide staircase ascending into darkness, but I was drawn to the main parlor at the back of the house. A single large fireplace, built of massive stone blocks, dominated that room. Even with the overhead lights flickering uncertainly, I could see the black scorch marks creeping up its chimney. A memory from childhood flashed through my mind. I'd visited this place once, at age 7, but I scarcely recalled details, except that I had heard my great-uncle mention the old fireplace. He had called it a silent witness, though I hadn't understood the phrase at the time. Now, decades later, I felt the weight of that description. Something about the fireplace felt alive, not in a cozy, comforting sense, but in a brooding, watchful way. Night fell quickly in this rural isolation. The heating system was defunct. I decided to make a fire in that ominous hearth, if only to keep warm. Gathering logs from an outdoor woodpile, I carried them in, half expecting the wind to push me back out. The parlor had no working lamp, so I placed a flashlight on a side table, its beam flickering faintly. I arranged the wood, added kindling, then struck a match. The flames caught slow at first, then roared, sending shadows dancing on the walls. The wood crackled in a normal enough way, but under it all, I swore I could pick out an odd rhythm, like the popping was forming a pattern or tune. I attributed that to an overactive imagination, yet as the fire flared, the light revealed something in the corners of the room. Crates, maybe? Curious, I realized they were sealed wooden boxes labeled with old shipping tags. I approached, noticing they bore the name MacArthur and dates from the 1920s. One was partially open, revealing old photographs. The sepia images showed the same fireplace behind groups of long-dead relatives, their expressions oddly somber. In one photo, a young woman stood alone, eyes wide with sorrow. The caption read, "Vivian, 1912, gone but never forgotten." My chest tightened. The expression on her face was haunting, as though she carried a secret horror. The fire crackled louder, drawing me back. I knelt, prodding the logs with a brass poker. The warmth was welcome, though I couldn't shake the unease. Then, unexpectedly, I felt a faint waft of cold air on my neck, as though someone were standing behind me, exhaling. I froze, heart pounding. Turning quickly, I found no one. The parlor door stood ajar, leading into a dim corridor. The entire house was silent aside from the flames. Deciding I was simply tired, I tried to settle in an old armchair near the fire. The flickering glow provided the only light. I might have dozed off if not for the insistent popping from the wood. At times, it sounded like hushed footsteps crossing the floor behind me. Then, in a lull, I heard a faint tapping. My eyes snapped open. The tapping was rhythmic, almost like a waltz in the shadows. It started near the fireplace, moved to the corner, then back, always at the edge of hearing. I leapt to my feet, annoyance and fear intertwining. Searching the parlor's corners revealed only stacks of dusty furniture, draped in cloth. My flashlight beam flickered across layers of dust on the floor. No footprints. Nothing that could be making that tapping noise. And yet it resumed the moment I turned my back, like a cat-and-mouse game with an unseen presence. Determined to banish superstition, I tossed another log on the fire, telling myself that the wind in the chimney or cracks in the masonry might produce strange acoustics. But a voice in my head asked, what if the fireplace is echoing something older, some event that transpired here long ago? Midnight approached, and a gnawing hunger reminded me I'd eaten nothing since early afternoon. The property's kitchen, as I soon discovered, was a relic with no working refrigerator. I managed to scrounge instant coffee and an old kettle. The gas lines, mercifully, still had a trickle of service, so I boiled water for coffee. The faint whistling kettle momentarily drowned out the fireplace's crackling tune, allowing me a modicum of comfort. Returning to the parlor with a steaming mug, I found the fire had burned lower. The logs glowed in a bed of embers that shimmered red and white. The tune shifted. Each pop of the wood became a sharp staccato. Then I heard something else. The faintest melody, like a hum, drifting from the hearth's depths. I froze, mug halfway to my lips. The melody was so subtle that if the wind outside hadn't died down, I might have missed it entirely. A single notion gripped me. The house is singing. A ridiculous thought, yet I couldn't dismiss it. Setting my mug on the mantel, I peered into the embers. My reflection flickered across the glowing coals. The melody hushed. Out of nowhere, a swirl of sparks erupted, as if the ember spat cinders at me. I stumbled back, coughing as a wave of heat assaulted my face. My eyes stung from the bright flash. When my vision cleared, I glimpsed a figure near the window, a shape. Gasping, I aimed my flashlight. The shape vanished. I hastened to the window, flung open the drapes, revealing only the darkness of the night. The reflection from the glass showed my own startled face. No footprints outside. I began to question my sanity. Had exhaustion conjured illusions? Yet the house's hush felt heavier, as though acknowledging my presence. Reminding myself I was alone, I decided it would be best to head to bed. The upstairs master bedroom was musty, but had a serviceable mattress. With the help of a fresh set of sheets from a linen closet, I made the bed. My phone's battery was nearly drained. No charger found among the house's ancient outlets. The overhead light flickered ominously. Lying there, I tried to calm down, but the image of that figure near the window haunted me. Sleep teased at the edges of my consciousness, eventually overtaking me despite lingering dread. I awoke sometime later to a crash from downstairs. Bolting upright in bed, heart pounding, I strained to hear. The night lay silent again, but adrenaline coursed through me. Had something fallen? Or was a door forced open? The entire house felt electric with tension. I grabbed my flashlight, descending the creaky stairs. The parlor light was off, the fireplace smoldering. A strong smell of burnt wood hung in the air. Nothing appeared broken, yet an eerie scratch mark scarred the wooden floor in front of the hearth, as though someone had dragged a heavy object across it. I approached carefully, scanning the corners. Suddenly, I heard a moan, a deep, mournful sound, seemingly emerging from the fireplace. It wasn't the wind. It was almost human. My heart hammered. Against all better judgment, I knelt and peered into the soot-black interior. The dying coals still glowed faintly. The moan repeated, a resonance bouncing off the chimney walls. Then came a rush of wine down the flue, stirring ash into my face. I coughed, staggering back. That's when I saw a shape flicker in the embers' glow, forming the faint outline of a woman. Her features were blurred, but I recognized the hair, the posture. It matched the photograph from the crate. Vivian. She extended an ephemeral hand, ghostly pale, eyes brimming with desperation. A silent scream shaped her mouth. Then the embers collapsed, the shape dissolving into blackness. In a panic, I scrambled to my feet. My entire body trembled. I now believe wholeheartedly that the fireplace was a conduit for something dreadful and undead. If the ghostly figure was truly that young woman from decades past, what had happened to her, and why was she bound to this place? Desperation replaced terror. I raced to the crates, rummaging through the old photographs, diaries, letters, hoping for an explanation. At last, I found a mildewed leather notebook, penned by my great-grandfather. His spidery writing recounted a tragedy in 1912. Vivian was a family friend who'd come to recover from illness. One night, a fire broke out in the parlor, and she was trapped, succumbed to the flames. Rumors hinted that the blaze was no accident, that jealousy or rage sparked it. The notebook didn't confirm guilt, but it said, "She lingers, the silent witness of the dark fireplace." My stomach lurched. So the house's whispers, that ominous tune, could be the echoes of her final night. The moan might be her torment, replayed endlessly. The silent witness phrase took on dire weight. The fireplace was a silent observer of a crime or tragic accident. The diaries ended abruptly, as if someone forced a family to hush the matter. Determined to end her suffering, I reasoned I must do something to lay her spirit to rest. Stories I'd heard in childhood suggested sprinkling holy water or retrieving an item bound to the ghost, but I had no idea if that was valid. Still, I felt compelled to burn something, a cleansing or exorcism of sorts. Searching the crates, I found an old comb with initials VB. It likely belonged to Vivian. I decided to place it in the fireplace, hoping the symbolic act might release her. I returned to the hearth, stoked the embers with fresh wood, ignoring my terror. Soon, flames danced again. The crackling grew intense, weaving that uncanny tune. My heart pounded as I dropped Vivian's comb into the flames. For a moment, nothing. Then the flame surged unnaturally high, forcing me to shield my face. A gust of wind whooshed up the chimney, swirling sparks in a miniature tornado. The moan returned, louder than ever, rising to a crescendo that sounded like a woman wailing in heartbreak. I clutched the mantle to keep from fainting. The fire's heat pressed in. My eyes burned from smoke, and then, as abruptly as it began, the swirl died down. The comb was gone, melted or burned away. An oppressive hush followed. My ears rang in the silence. I almost wept with relief when the flames subsided, casting only a soft glow. For a few moments, no ghostly illusions appeared. I inhaled, tears pricking my eyes as I whispered, "Be free, Vivian." Exhausted, I slumped in the armchair. The oppressive weight that had clung to the parlor all night felt lifted, replaced by a hesitant peace. As the minutes ticked by, no more moans or phantom shapes emerged. Even the crackling logs sounded normal. A mild pop or hiss, but lacking that strange melody. Hours later, dawn's early light filtered through the dusty windows. I was still in the armchair, half asleep, breathing slowly. The fire was gone, leaving a bed of gray ash. A sense of calm replaced the night's terror. Rising, I paced the room, checking for signs that it had all been a nightmare. On the floor, the deep scratch remained. Soot smudged my hands, and the crates lay open, their contents strewn. A faint impression in the ash near the fireplace, like a delicate footprint, vanished when I stepped closer, the dust scattering. I never witnessed another apparition in that house. In the days that followed, I cleaned, repaired, and discovered no further phenomenon. Even so, the memory of Vivian's face in the embers haunted me. I kept the diaries, scanning them for more details. My great-grandfather's guilt seemed palpable between the lines, suggesting someone intentionally locked her in that parlor. The rumor was that the family suppressed the scandal, paying hush money. If her restless spirit truly lingered, it was no wonder the house felt heavy with sorrow. But the final act of burning her personal memento in the same flames that once claimed her might have released her soul from that endless nightmare. To outsiders, the house remains a quiet relic with a questionable history. I eventually restored it, keeping the fireplace intact, but never lighting it except on mild winter evenings. Once, I tested it again with a small fire, just to see if the tune returned. It did not. Only the gentle crackle of wood in a normal hearth. No haunting echoes or anguished moans. A part of me missed a sense of cosmic awe, but felt relief that the tragedy no longer repeated. Now, I sometimes spend weekends there, enjoying the solitude. On a lonely night, when the wind rattles the shutters, I'll recall the hush that enveloped me that first evening, the hush that concealed a ghost's torment. Then, I reflect on how many old homes carry silent witnesses of heartbreak or guilt. The difference at this house is that the fireplace was the stage for a final, brutal act, the memory of which clung like soot to the walls. If my choice to release Vivian's comb was the key, I'll never know for sure. Yet I like to think that somewhere in the beyond, she's at rest, freed from that ominous tune of crackling wood in the dead of night. Although the gloom is lifted, I still catch faint glimpses in the corner of my eye, shadows shifting near the mantel, a soft breath of air behind me. Perhaps fragments of an echo remain, but they're far gentler, like a sigh rather than a wail. Each time, I whisper a calm reassurance. You're not forgotten, but you're no longer trapped. Sometimes visitors ask why I keep such a large, archaic fireplace. A modern insert would be more practical, they say. I just smile, recalling the haunting I witnessed. The fireplace is part of the house's soul. Removing it would be like ripping out a heart. Even if it once contained an ominous tune and terrifying illusions, it also taught me empathy for the unknown. In the quiet nights when I choose not to light a fire, I can almost sense it humming softly, a vestige of old secrets. But the dread is gone, replaced by something gentler, a remembrance. And so the house endures, no longer quite so haunted, yet never fully free of its legacy. The logs that burn each winter rarely conjure anything more than mundane warmth now, but I've not forgotten how easily that warmth can turn ominous. Even normal crackles can morph into a ghostly symphony if the house wills it. The lesson remains. In silent corners, the past can speak through faint moans, uncanny melodies, or fleeting apparitions. But sometimes, an act of compassion can dissolve those echoes. In the end, the hush that once spelled doom has become a lullaby of sorts. I leave the house in peace on warm summer nights, returning to the city with a strange bond forged in terror and release. The legacy of Vivian and the fireplace is now my secret to keep. If by chance a log splits in a startling pop, or the coals glow in the shape of a sorrowful face, I'm reminded that the boundary between life and lingering memory can be razor thin. But no longer do I fear it. I acknowledge it as part of the tapestry of a place that stands as silent witness to the dark events of the past, an ominous tune of Crackling that once played in the dead of night, but now lies quiet, having sung its final verse.